Hello, Pastor Aubrey.
How are you, Katrina?
I am good. I am good. Very good, actually. Yes. How about you?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. I cannot complain. It's been a good week. Even though it's just Tuesday, but it's been good. Lots of good things. I had the opportunity on Monday. Attended a Black History event. The history of South Phoenix, and
Oh, okay.
learned quite a bit from that. And even though we came here in 1965, and funny thing about it is Broadway is so familiar and entrenched in the history of Phoenix, and so that actually, when we first came here, lived on 24th Street and Broadway, in some apartments there, and so had some connection to that. So it was good. I'm excited about all the things that are happening this year. It seems to be more prevalent with Black History things happening around the country. Um, Television stations, just a lot of acknowledgement for Black history, and I don't know if that came because of the controversy, that has been stirred up, but I'm excited about it.
That's good. I think I would probably I would go back. I always reference the Willie Lynch letter, and when I think about the time frame on it, how he identifies applying these actual principles, and the principles, if applied accurately, he said they'll last until 2012. And I'm like, so I guess after 2012, everybody started waking up. So we're slowly waking up, and that hold is no longer on us. So yeah, like we even bought, Anthony got us these wristbands at Apple, at the Apple store. It's a Unity wristband,
Oh, really?
Black History Month. So
Oh,
yeah.
really? Did he have to buy it, or did they give it to him?
I told you when he went back to his hobby, they were gonna get most of that money back. So yeah, I think he had to buy it. It's he had to buy
Oh,
it.
okay,
Get a, I mean, a discount, but he had to do
good,
it.
good. Yeah, I one of the things that they talked about was working together and coming together, and I think as you identified that division is one of the challenges that we're experiencing, and that erosion has come over time. But I believe God's bringing us back together. So yeah.
Absolutely. I'm hoping to see more of us come back together within our culture, right? Within the culture too. So
I think one of the things, and our topic today, I think helps with that, and that is seeing things from the other side, and being able to recognize that for us to have unity, we really have to be able to see things from the other side. So I
absolutely.
think it's a really benefiting topic, specifically for this season that we're in regards to Black history and being able to see it from the other side. Whether you are Black or African American or African descent, that we still have to realize we have to see things from the other side. Because all of us, we're not monolithic, so we all had different backgrounds, coming from different parts of the country and showing up and all that kind of stuff. So this is wonderful. I'd like to begin today with a story. I think it's a story that I read, and it sort of stuck with me, because I think I was reading The Seven Habits of Highly Effective People, Stephen Covey. And I think it was in that book that I heard this story. There was a man who got on a train, I believe in New York, and he got on the train with all of his kids, and they got on the plane on the train, and the kids were running around on the train, jumping up and down, just basically looking unruly, and not really paying, walking over people, just all over the place. And there was a woman who sat on the train, and she looked, and her thought was that these children are just just atrocious. This is the worst thing. And look at the father. He's not doing anything. They're not controlled. He's not disciplining them. They should be sitting down, being respectful of him and others on the train. And she's just going on and on. It's like this generation that's not taking care of their kids. And so what she ultimately then does is she sits there, and then the father, who happens to be sitting close to her, and he says, my wife just died. um, she went into the hospital, and it was supposed to be something minor, but she died, and I don't know what to tell my children. I don't know how to to soothe their pain. I don't know what to do. And he said, I'm sorry, that they're running all over the place, but I'm just devastated. I don't know how I'm going to take care of them. In that situation. And so I think when we think about that, the woman now is having what we call a paradigm shift. So she's got to shift her focus, from her own experiences, shifting from her own experiences and why these children are behaving this way. And now she has a spirit of empathy. She's now seeing it from a different, because she realizes that they're in pain and that they're not sure how to act out. So I think our topic today on seeing things from the other side is so beneficial, to helping us. And I believe this story helps us to begin to recognize, are there things that we're looking at? Are there situations in our lives? Are there things around us that we have perceived from our own stereotypes, from our own experiences, not realizing that my experience is not everyone's experiences?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's it's taking it from a more trauma-informed view, right? Instead of saying what's wrong with you, right? We're saying what happened to you. And taking that stance, Pastor, that lady with her paradigm shift in the story that you shared, if we take that stance from the beginning, right, we will be able to be present in the event that someone actually does need our assistance, right? Like you'd be able to ask the question, what's going on? Is there a way that I can help? So um, has had you had been on that train or the bus with the kids and taking it from that perspective, from the perspective of what's what happened to you, how could we take that question and apply it when you see kids who are unruly and you're thinking automatically we probably all might think, ooh, there's some bad kids.
Yeah.
Right. But if we have that perspective,
Baby, what's it called? Baby's kids.
baby's kids, so what, those baby kids, they don't die, they multiply. But from taking it from that perspective, entering in that situation, how could someone react differently? Right? How could someone actually act differently or respond differently to that in that space?
Right. And approach it. I think the first thing that I think we can learn from that and understand even about is reflective. I believe it's called reflective listening. And
Mhm.
reflective listening is not just ear, but it's also eye, right? So I'm looking at the collection of people, understanding what am I seeing, what am I experiencing here, am I seeing it or hearing or observing it from a different lens? What how do I put myself into a place of reflective? There are individuals who, in fact, I have a friend who posted something on Facebook, and when he posted it on Facebook, there were individuals who heard one thing, but what I was hearing was pain. that there had been a devastating experience that had caused him to feel pain, and so he sort of lashed out. And I wasn't going for the lashing out. I was looking at the pain
Yeah.
that he had experienced.
Yeah, absolutely. So your response is going to be different, right? Even in this situation, one might respond to those kids like, "Oh, you guys look like you're having a lot of fun."
Yeah,
Right? Just automatically you engage. You begin to engage with people when you have a desire or an eye to reflect it, to add reflective listening. So if I'm going to add reflective listening to child's play, I might engage in their play.
right. Exactly. Yeah.
And so it's being willing to, as you said, using your friend's example, hear, not only hear what they are saying, but hear what they're not saying,
Right.
right? From a more compassionate, open place. I actually had that happen to me today. The example that you gave of the kid, but it wasn't more so like a bad kid running around. During my lunch, I went over to get a crumble cookie. You know, Ash Wednesday is
It's
tomorrow.
tomorrow. Yeah.
So I went over to get a crumble cookie, and I see this lady interacting with her son and maybe her son's friend. It looks like it may have been her son's friend or maybe her other child, but he looks like he was in distress. She was in distress trying to help him. So he was clearly upset and he took off running in a different direction. And she's overwhelmed. I saw that she had yelled, you know, and she was frustrated and she yelled. And so as I'm pulling out, I asked her, so, ma'am, is there anything that I can do for you? Can I help? And so, and I had assumptions. I was like, I wonder what's going on. I'm hoping the kid's not, you know, of course, in my line of work, suicidal, or, you know, there's nothing in overly extreme going on. I'm hoping because that's shark music to me. But it's
Right.
still, I still make those assumptions, right? But when I pulled over, she was like, "He's autistic and he's getting ready to have a wisdom tooth taken out." So he ran out of there. He's like,
Right.
"Y'all not supposed to put no needles in my mouth. Y'all not supposed to do nothing." And so I was like, okay, okay. And so, and I still had an opportunity to, you know, pull along the side. And I was like, hey, oh my gosh, this must be a scary experience. And I communicated with him and I shared a story about an older person who waited to get their wisdom tooth taken out and how it cracked in their gums. I was like, so you don't want to be that older person waiting. So you're actually pretty lucky. And so he wouldn't look up at me. And then I was like, but I hope that helps. And he looked up at me then. He said, it does. So, you know, but I had that opportunity. But if we don't take the time to pay attention, we will automatically jump and make assumptions. Someone may have made an assumption about this mom being a bad parent or anything, not even understanding what she was
Right.
going. So So yeah, it's being able to see things from both sides, I think can be helpful if we learn
Yeah.
to do it accurately.
If any of our listeners have a situation or circumstance where you've experienced that, why don't you pop that in the comments and we can address or I'll be able to do that. I was, as you were sharing and as I was thinking, I have a member, and actually she's not a member, but a former. She's the mother of a former member, and he's going through some difficulties right now in his life, and has a diagnosis of schizophrenia and some other stuff that's going on, and depression. And so, as she called me, she said, "Can you mentor him? Can you, you know?" And so when I called, I was sort of trying to understand, you know, where he was, and what was going on, because I didn't know the full, because it's been a while since I'd seen him or talked to him. Um, and I realized that I needed to hear the words she was saying to understand where she was as the parent. because sometimes, I don't know if there's anybody who's listening, but sometimes you have individuals around you in your life who you're at your wits end. You don't know what to do. You don't know how to respond, and for someone to come in and tell you, well, this is what you should have done. You should have done this, and you should have done that, and you start giving these prescriptions, instead of listening and understanding that they are frustrated. And sometimes it's just a matter of listening. It's just a matter of taking in where they are. Had another member who was trying. He was planning to come to church. He didn't come, and so I texted him and said, "Hey, I missed you. What's going on?" And he was really honest with me, and I was grateful for that because he identified. He said, "Listen," he said, "Pastor, I was hungover." And I said, "Okay." And I said, and he said, "And in fact, I'm drinking now, and I shouldn't be." So for me, it was hearing that, hey, I'm in a difficult situation. I'm in a difficult circumstance. And I need someone who's going to hear me and hear what I'm saying, that this is a problem. And that the problem is not me getting there, but it's what I'm doing that's preventing me to get from getting there. And so it wasn't the time to jump on and beat up, and that it was saying, okay, so I asked them the question. So what's going on? Why do you feel like you need to drink? What's driving that? And he basically said, I'm angry. And I said, so tell me about your anger. Tell me what you're angry at. And he basically said, I'm not angry at the world, but it's those kind of things that we begin to recognize as I'm trying to see it from the other side, to see what's going on over there that I don't know. Because I'm looking at my grass and not and trying to determine what's wrong with your grass, and being able to identify. Listen, let me see it from your perspective.
Absolutely. I think one of the things as we talk about reflective listening, to Pastor Aubrey, it's mirroring back the words you heard from the other person. I know in my marriage, oh my goodness, this used to be a big issue, a big issue, because Anthony would say something and he might use a different word, right? And so me, I'm a where I identify myself as a wordsmith, let's say. And
Okay.
so I would repeat back. I was always good at repeating back what he would say. So I was like, so what you're saying is this, and I would repeat back my definition of what the word meant. And, and he would see, you're not even listening to me. I'm like, but no, that's what that word meant. And so it also often we'll repeat back what we heard them say, and we won't even give them the grace to restate it or rephrase what they said. And we're not going to clarify why we heard, how we heard what we heard, right? So I think it's important for us to say, well, what I heard you say was, and this is why. And so I had to often say, but that word meant this. And when I started doing that, he'd be like, oh, well, that's not what I meant.
Yeah.
And in some relationships, you'd be like, no, you meant what you meant the first time you said it.
Yeah.
Yep, that's what you meant. And we don't give them the grace to change that.
Yeah.
So reflective listening gives space for accurate communication, for us to be able to hear what they're actually saying, and for them to even know that we heard what they were saying.
That is also, another way of stating that is one of the things that the Seven Habits says is seek to understand before you try to get understood, and that seeking to understand is part of the reflective listening. And that I want to understand where you are. I want to understand what you're going through, before I try to give you what I'm trying to get you to do. First of all, you need to hear that I know where you are, and I know and are able to. I think the next step is empathize, right? So empathy, and empathy says I hear you and I feel what you feel, even though I may not have experienced, but I'm feeling it through you.
Yeah, that truly. And when we empathize, there's sympathy and then there's empathy. When we empathize, we take an opportunity to remember that the picture that I showed in the beginning of being able to walk around, and we talked about being able to walk around to the other person's side and see what they're seeing from their perspective or from their angle, because it's understanding that in my seat I may not see it that way, but if I take an opportunity to get over into your seat, like with the first story that you shared,
Mhm.
um, the lady, she was like, if my she had to be able to get into this man's situation and say, I bet if I would have lost my partner, I wouldn't know what to do, and I wouldn't know how to control my kids either. But not only that, she took an opportunity to get in the kids' shoes as well, because they didn't, like, with everything going on, their whole world was upside down, and they
Yeah.
were just reacting and responding the best way that they could.
I see Trivian actually shared that she was the individual who received the empathy, who received the reflective listener from her adopted mom. I think that's wonderful that you can recognize, and I believe from a biblical perspective or a Christian perspective, is what I received. I
Mhm.
now want to be able to give. Um,
Absolutely.
and to those who've experienced that kind of reflective listening, to much who much is given, much is required. So it says, I need to be able to do that now that I've received it.
Yeah. And so in the way that she described it, she said her adopted mom was a reflective listener. So she communicated to her what she heard her saying, right? She communicated. So what you're telling me, child, right, is this, right? And so it gave her an opportunity to clearly articulate her thoughts. If that wasn't exactly what she was saying, she had an opportunity, right? Hope, and she said exactly. So she had an opportunity to clarify and restate it. And her adoptive mom gave her the space to do that,
Yeah.
right? And that's awesome, because if we imagine the lives that we can affect if we give people the space to do that. So it
That is also, I think, important when in our current state, when we are taking in children, or we have children who are in the foster care system, realizing, listen, I need to be able to understand whether, because we're seeing behavior that does not reflect necessarily what our rules are, but I need to understand where you came from.
yeah.
And I was in, I think I might have shared this. I think I was in um, Miami visiting some schools, and one of the young boys there had been shipped from Mexico, actually from Nicaragua, I think is where he's from. He was put into a box and sent to the States.
Wow.
So he was disconnected from all his family and everything, and so he was in a box. And so when he came to the school, he was basically, he cried the whole time. He was just traumatized, and one of the teachers just embraced him and was patient with him, understanding that this this boy has been and put into a box and shipped to a place where he didn't know anyone.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but I don't know if I could ever actually know how to function. And you're trying to teach him ABCs, and it's like, uh, right now, I don't know who you people are. I don't know where you came from, but understanding that it was being able to reflect, and then coming to a place where the language that you've learned is not the primary language.
Right. Right.
So
Again, it goes back to giving them the space to calm down, right? To Because often when we communicate, we might be communicating out of our frustration, out of our fear, out of our anxiety, um, in Hulk mode. Remember, I talked a lot about Hulk mode, right? We might communicate from that Hulk mode space. And if we're not given the time to um, be accurate, feel like we've inaccurately heard, which leads to, right, the third one, which is to validate. If we don't feel heard, if we don't feel heard, we feel like no one hears us, we can't grow in that place. We will continue to operate in that space of Hulk mode, not feeling loved, not feeling heard, ostracized, feeling ostracized, not necessarily that the individual who you're talking to is trying to ostracize you, because we don't get up in the morning and make a decision, oh, I'm just going to go make that person feel. Sometimes we just don't know how to communicate. And so the goal is to learn how to communicate so that the person on the other end of our communication doesn't feel as if we don't care. Because
I have a question, and it's validate the feeling, not necessarily validating the behavior.
correct. Correct. So when it comes to validation, it's validating that I hear you and I understand that you have a reason for feeling this way, right? And so, because often someone was like, "Well, you ain't got no right to feel sad." More
Right.
everybody else then went through what look what you have. You should be lucky to have this, right? That's what Trevon's mom could have done. You should be lucky to be in my adopted you ain't got no reason to act like that. She could have responded to her in that way. But validate says, I understand that it's been rough for you. I
Yeah.
get it. But you know what? I hear you. I hear you. Now how can we do things differently? What is it that we can do? And how can I help you?
Right.
Right? It's coming from a place of empathy and a
Hmm.
place of giving the person space to feel what they feel.
Yeah.
Just because you don't feel what I feel don't mean it's not real.
Yeah.
So
And I think one of the things that in that validating and feeling empathy is, for example, a young man I was saying who felt angry said, you've got a right to feel that anger, and let's explore what are some ways of expressing this anger that are not self-destructive or not destructive to others, because it's a valid feeling. And I think validating that and saying, so what else is there capable of doing? What else can we do to address this feeling that you have? You said sometimes I'm so angry I just hit a wall, right? And it's like, okay, let's find something else to do, because you hurt yourself hitting the wall. I know with my son, being so angry, with him. And I remember the phrase, I saw red, and the next thing I know, my hands are around your throat. It's like, okay, yeah, but we need to find a way to channel this, because this is anger. You have this, but how do I respond in a way that's non-destructive?
yeah, absolutely. And so knowing you and knowing them as well. So sometimes I might be the one that needs to take a break because I'm like yelling at them, but I need to be the one to take a moment and let me come back to you and talk to you when I no longer see red. Because right now I'm having a hard time understanding what you're telling me. Right? And again, I'm picking on Trevon right here because she, put hers out there. It's and I'm pretty sure there were times when her mom was like, okay, hold on, wait a minute. I'm having a hard time understanding right now, right? So let me take a moment back. Let me take a moment, and then we're gonna talk about this once I've had a little bit of time to process
Yeah,
myself. So,
yeah,
and we all need that, but you need to know yourself. The awareness is going to be so important. So I think it's I need to begin to understand me. It's what we talked about, right? Well, we have here is to understand me and my filters and my blinders. What is keeping me from hearing you in this moment? And right, it could be that I'm just angry and I can't. I got a headache because of what you just did. My whatever the problem is, my car is wrecked or I'm late for work. Whatever it is, I'm struggling right now and I cannot hear what you're saying. So I need to calm down. So that awareness is going to be key.
yeah. This is a good topic. I What came to mind was, in our current events, is I'm thinking about the war in Ukraine,
Mhm.
and our response to, understanding what the devastation that's being experienced in Ukraine, and being able to show empathy, and realizing that we're powerless, basically to respond for them, but helping them to be able to respond in an effective way. And I think that's a high level current event. But I would encourage those who are listening and understanding what's going on around you, what's taking place, and do you have blinders? Do you have those blocks, and do you have the ability to have the understanding myself and understanding what I'm capable of doing? I was sharing with someone today, and they were trying to get another individual to open up and share, and I said, and so if they do, what are you going to do about it? And he said, well, I don't know. And I said, it's a hard thing. I said it's a difficult, when you try to play God in someone else's life. So that's a heavy thing, because you realize I can't fix this, and so all I can do is empathize with you and let you know I understand, and validate that you're good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Thank you all for joining us. Thank you, Trivian, for sharing in this conversation. We are so grateful to you. We're going to close in prayer. Father, we just bless you and we thank you for this opportunity you've given us to just share this nugget. Lord, it's our desire to be able to empathize with others. We are called as believers to do that. Thank you for the ability you've given us, the compassion you've shown us. Help us to share it with others. Help us to show mercy, and Father, help us to show love. And the peace that we have, help us to share that peace. And knowing that what your word says, that all things do work together for good to them that love you and are called according to your purpose. So regardless of where others find themselves, may they be able to see through the eyes of the other individual and be able to empathize, and then be able to validate that, and be able to come with constructive ways to express those feelings, those challenges that they're experiencing. I pray for those parents who are challenged with children, and for those children who are challenged with parents who are going through things. And so, God, I pray now that your Holy Spirit would lead as you've promised, guide and direct in all truth. And so we bless you and we thank you for it. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen.
amen.
Well, we are out of time today, but this is Bob Talk, and we will be back next week with another topic. God bless you. We'll see you next time on Bob Talk.
Bye, everyone.